Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to the complete Shadow Specters review. Yeah, I'm gonna do that in every video. Anyway, so today I want to talk about the winner of the Shortest Hype of the Year award. Where are they? Vampires. Like I said, they got a lot of hype for like 2 days and then disappeared off the face of the planet. So I want to talk about them and run down the list of cards in the deck and just kind of see what this deck looks like and whether it might see competitive play in the TCG. So first we're going to start off with Sorcerer. Now this card's pretty crazy. At first when I looked at this I was like, oh good, this is going to be a pretty insane archetype. So this card's effect is, if this card is sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card, including by battle, by card effect, or by being destroyed, you can add either one Dark Vampire monster or one Vampire spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard. You can normal summon one Dark Vampire monster this turn without tributing. So at first, this seems really good, because it can search out any of the best cards in the deck, and it allows you that extra normal summon without tributing. However, one of the things that we notice with the really big decks and their searchers is that not only do they have like crazy search power, like this, or like Abyssland, or like Snow, but they also have ways to abuse that search power with card effects. And the problem with Vampire Sorcerer is the fact that it basically totally prevents that, since it says that this card is sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card, etc., etc., etc. So you actually have to wait for your opponent to take this thing out, which, you can't use something like Abyss Sphere, you can't do any Call to Haunted shenanigans. It isn't searchable from the deck with any of your cards except maybe Goblin Zombie, which I believe, just a moment, I don't even think that you can use Goblin Zombie with this card. Um, No, you cannot. You cannot even add this card to your hand with the Goblin Zombie. So the problem with this card is there are no ways to tutor it and no ways to abuse its effect, except just letting your opponent kill it, which is great and all, but it makes it a little bit of a slow play. There are other things, however, in the deck that can make this card um, kind of abusable, and I'll get to that in a second. The first one, of course, is Vampire Shadow. Um, Vampire Shadow is a level 5, 2000 0. When this card is normal summoned, you can special summon one Dark Vampire from your hand or deck, except Shadow Vampire. Or Vampire Shadow. That's an interesting typo. Anyway, if you do, monsters you can control cannot attack for the rest of this turn except that monster. This card cannot be used as Xyz material for an Xyz summon except for the Xyz summon of a dark monster. So one of the things you can do with this guy is you can use him to summon Vampire Lord from your deck. I believe Vampire Lord's the level 5 one. Anyway, and then you can use our next friend to special summon herself from the graveyard, or special summon another level 6 vampire like Vampire's Curse, I believe, and then summon Grace from the graveyard. And I don't know what I'm thinking, because then you still can't attack. Anyway, you can summon another level 5 vampire from your deck and then summon like Adrius or the Xyz monster, which you can use for some crazy shenanigans. The problem with this card is the not being able to attack with any monster except that one. One of the problems I see with this deck is every time I look at the cards, they have a restriction that actually makes the card balanced. And the problem with that is that it makes these cards into really good cards. They are very good. Like the ability to special summon a monster from your deck, combined with Sorcerer's ability to allow him a free normal summon, is amazing, except for the fact that that monster is the only card that can attack, which makes it not broken. The problem with taking on this meta is that really good is not enough. You have to have at least a broken play to go with the deck with all of these good effects in order to make it work. And barring the possibility of a TCG exclusive that makes a really broken play for this deck, or support from Legacy of the Valiant, so far I haven't seen anything that matches up to the current meta. So this is included in that. While it can, abuse more Sorcerer, it and it can go for things like Adrius or the Vampire Xyz. It does slow the deck down and restrict it enough that it doesn't really have that spot in the competitive meta. However, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's talk about Vampire Grace. Vampire Grace is a special case. Ooh, that rhymed. Wish I could do that all the time. Anyway, so when it's in the graveyard and you have a level 5 or higher zombie monster, it's special summoned to your side of the field by a zombie-type monster's effect. You can pay 2,000 life points, special summon this card from your graveyard. So if you summon a zombie with Shadow, or I believe with Bram could do the same thing, then you can pay 2,000 life points, special summon it. You can only use that effect once per turn. And then once per turn you can declare one card type, and your opponent sends one card of that type from their deck to the graveyard. This card has some power plays associated with it, and I'll get to that in a second. But really, all in all, it isn't that amazing, since you have to pay that 2,000 in order to do it. You can only do it once per turn. And it can't be used to Xyz summon with those level 5 vampire monsters that you have in the rest of the deck. So, its 2,000 attack makes it less amazing. The fact that it's level 6 makes it less amazing. But that once per turn sending a card from their deck to the graveyard thing actually has some serious advantages, and I'll get to that in a second. Next, let's talk about the Xyz monster. It's a rank 5 zombie, requires 2 level 5 zombie type monsters. You can detach one Xyz material from this card, then target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon that target to your side of the field, but if you do, monsters you can control cannot attack for the rest of this turn except that monster. You can only use the effect of Vampire Bram once per turn. During your standby phase, this card is in your graveyard because it was destroyed while you controlled it by your opponent's card, either by battle or by card effect, and sent there since the previous standby phase. Special summon this card from the graveyard in face-up defense position. Aside from having the longest single sentence in any effect ever made, this card has some pretty cool uses. For instance, if you're playing against a Chaos-based deck, this card can summon a BLS from your opponent's graveyard and then beat them upside the head with it. It can block out some other strategies from other decks. You can steal your opponent's Bujin's monsters from the graveyard and use them against them. You can... Oh, I'm trying to think through the meta. You can summon the World of Prophecy from your opponent's graveyard and steal that from them and use it as a beat stick. There are just a number of really cool things that you can do with this card. Not to mention the fact that it is the single most difficult card in the world to get rid of. The only thing that really takes it out is like a D-Prison or a Wing Blast, or maybe a Compulsory. But other than that, like, as long as it's on the field or in the graveyard, you can't get rid of the darn thing. Not to mention the fact that it's a chameleon target. So if you summon it, if it does somehow stay in the graveyard, you can summon it from the graveyard with chameleon if you feel so inclined. And then, once again, it's pretty much impossible to get rid of. So that's a pretty cool card. It's got 2 great effects, and it combos nicely with Shadow. And this gets us into Vampire Kingdom. So its effect is zombie-type monsters gain 500 attack during damage calculation only, which turns your Sorcerer into a 2,000 beater. Shadow gets up to 25. Grace also gets up to 25. Elder Ritter gets up to 3,000. So that's a pretty good effect. And once per turn, when a card is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, target one card on the field, send one dark vampire monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that target. So, including Goblin Zombie, a number of these cards match with that. The first one, of course, being Grace, who once per turn can send a card of monster, spell, or trap from your opponent's deck to the graveyard. And then what you can do is you can pitch a vampire monster from your deck and then destroy a card, which is pretty decent. The only problem with that is that none of the vampire cards can abuse that card. Aside from the ability to begin it, to put in that initiative, to start it, to activate its effect. I'm having issues coming up with ways of saying that, apparently. Anyway, aside from being able to activate its effect, there are no cards vampire cards that, like when they're sent from the deck to the graveyard, have any special effects. So it's good, once again, but it isn't amazing, and that's a problem with this deck. And then we have Shift, which is an amazing card, which is if there are no field cards, field cards in your field card zones, and all face-up monsters you control are zombie type, activate one Vampire Kingdom directly from your deck, and then special summon one Dark Vampire monster from your graveyard in face-up defense position. You can only activate one Vampire Shift per turn. So one of the things you can do is if your opponent is playing like dragons, and they go for that that ravine play, you can chain this and then activate your Vampire Kingdom over that ravine, and then summon as a vampire monster from your graveyard in face-up defense position. You can use this card to abuse Sorcerer, so that if your opponent attacks this turn, you'll get that plus off of Shift. You can also, if you do it during your opponent's end phase, you can use it to summon Grace. So this card is really good, but without cards that truly abuse the effects and conditions that they use, that's what truly makes decks broken these days, is that they abuse the conditions of their effects in order to use them. Case in point, let's talk about Boojins for a second. They can abuse the cost of banishing a Boojin monster from your graveyard, or discarding a card with Mikazuchi or Arasuda to activate an effect, or you can take advantage of the fact that you have those banished monsters that you use for their cost to activate Boojin Carnation and go for some crazy Susanoo plays. Or Mermails, who take advantage of the conditions for summoning things like Mermail, Megalo, and Abyssteus in order to make the plays even more broken. With vampires, they don't have anything quite like that. They don't have cards that totally abuse the conditions of each other's effects, which makes it so that even though they're really good cards, they aren't spectacular cards. And if you have those Secret Mizukis, I do not think that they will gain any more hype. This is the card that I think will have the most effect on the market with this deck. That's why I'm just randomly mentioning it. They're at $9 now. I don't see them going above $10 with this deck. It's had no effect on the OCG, and yes, the OCG does have a different meta from the TCG, but overall, this deck, until we get like a broken exclusive or support out of the next set, is a good deck, and it would definitely be good on a local scale, but I don't see it being spectacular on a competitive scale. So my computer is about to die. So thank you guys for watching the complete Shadow Specters review. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why. And if there's anything I missed about this deck, because clearly there's got to be something better to it that I've just totally missed, absolutely hit up that comment section below, and then hit that subscribe button for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! and Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I gotta jet. See you guys.